have your blender, or if you catch the replay, you can make it later. So if you don't have tater leaf, you can use whatever spinach. There are different types of spinach. Where I am right now, this climbing spinach, which has a thicker leaf, and it's a little more mucilaginous, which is actually very soothing to your intestines. Again, a lot of times we're thinking of the party in our mouth, but we're not thinking about digestion and how the different foods are affecting our intestines, right? A lot of us have a lot of caked up old stuff in there, but the fiber inside of these vegetables, the insoluble fiber, the stuff we can't chew, let's say like some parts of the stem and the leaf, we can't chew those. So that insoluble fiber acts like a big broom. And then we have the insoluble fiber. So those folks that are in Flower Fit and I'm in Sunday coaching, we drink our green water. So when we're blending that stuff up, especially with the tender greens, those almost like soluble fibers. They break down in such fine fibers. They act like an excellent broom now for your arteries. So we have the insoluble, just in kind of like celery stalk or broccoli stalk. It doesn't break down in your system. So that's a nice big brush for the colon, right? A gentle, because it still has a lot of water and gentle fibers in it. That's the big brush for the colon, right? And the intestines. And then when we break down, we have our green water with our different types of greens. Then, or if those people that eat lentils, whether you do cooked or if you're doing living, those fibers are the soluble fibers that break down really, really fine, and they act like a fine broom. That, in addition to our movement practice, is what's going to help to clean our arteries. So again, distinction with whole, fresh, living foods. I love distinctions because I think they really help to leverage your clarity, and clarity is worth its weight in gold. It's going to help you not have to take 30 years to get to a point of clarity in terms of achieving a healthy weight and consistency in your fitness. So when you get really clear on certain principles, I tell you, you're going to get to a point. I'm saying this as a former junk food junkie, where people would not be able to pay you to eat certain things when you're very, very clear on the impact of what you're eating is having on your body long term. So you're not just thinking of the party in your mouth, which is what a lot of us are doing, not to make ourselves bad, because we're self-soothing with food. We're using the food in a sensory way to make ourselves feel better in terms of pleasure. Now, long-term, clogging up your colon and your arteries, that doesn't feel good. Yet we're conditioned. We're really conditioned. I'm very humble by marketing and the habits that other people in our families, a lot of times, even the mothers, we're eating, especially in this day and time, eating to self-medicate and to self-soothe, and it's sensory from sugar, salt, fat. But that doesn't necessarily mean we're getting nutrition into the system. So distinction here, the nutrition is priority number one. All of these greens are giving you B vitamins to help you deal with stress. If you're not getting any kind of greens, then how are you dealing with stress? How can you expect your brain to function optimally? Your brain, which is a control center, not the muscles, it's the brain. How can you function optimally? How can you be relaxed? How can you deal with all the triggers coming at you if you're not dousing yourself with greens and all the whole B complex of vitamins? So I invite you to consider distinction. Each meal, imagine each meal is medicine. If that's every meal, do you understand the impact where you're getting off what I call the diet whole stroll? That every meal is delicious and is beneficial? Think about that in contrast to, what I know some people call my nod to health. Yeah, I'll take a vitamin, or my vitamins are expensive. But imagine if you're eating 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a day, if each and every meal is medicine, that's significant. And I can tell you, that's the only thing. Someone asked me, so are you saying that that's what cleared up your skin? Yes. I like to be real clear. The only thing that cleared up my skin was 100% living foods. It wasn't 80, it wasn't 90, it wasn't 95%. And I had to really wrap my mind around it. All the years of all that recreational eating, it caught up with me. So even when I started juicing or making changes to my intake and my consumption patterns, I invite you to expand your thinking about eating. What really is eating? I invite you to consider your consumption patterns. That would also include you eating while standing up, you eating feeling very rushed, you eating not chewing your food thoroughly, which contributes to leaky gut and dysbiosis. You're eating under stress, you're eating from angry people, You're eating stuff that has no more water, no more color, no more natural fumes and essential oils. So what really is eating? Are you eating? Can we honestly say, I'm not there with you. Can we honestly say that we're eating primarily for nutrition? Or we eating more for self-soothing? I'm not trying to be the party pooper. I'm just saying, I ain't telling no grown folks what to do. But once the information is there, I like to say the light bulbs start going off. When the light bulbs go off, I'm telling you, after a period of time, I have found that when you get crystal clear, people would not be able to pay you. I was addicted to every Kit Kat, M&M, fried chicken, French fry addict, barbecue potato chips. It was intense. And my face reflected it. So 1 or 2 green juices was not enough to neutralize the years of impacting each layer every day. All the bubble gum is probably wrapped around my navel, child. All of those years of eating that stuff, it has to go somewhere. It doesn't disappear into thin air. So the very powerful messaging that we're getting on commercials and marketing, I think it lulls us into a sense of complacency when we don't feel a sense of urgency around dramatically altering our consumption patterns. And a lot of it, we may not want to hear it, is about what do we leave out. I always find it interesting when people start demonizing an avocado or pineapple or watermelon. Oh, that's too much sugar. Last time I checked, pineapple did not put acne on my face. Pineapple, watermelon did not get me cellulite. I can't speak for you. I talk about myself. Pineapple, this smells delicious. Pineapple did not jack up my skin, my colon. As a matter of fact, I wish that I had fresh pineapple as a child. In contrast to those cups, I remember in the lunchroom at lunch programs, we got some kind of processed cherry, a Marciano cherry, with a pear and maybe a couple of little pieces, not even a tablespoon of pineapple in a sugar syrup. There's no comparison. So nature gives us so many treats. There's no reason to cheat. All right, so we have fresh pineapple. Oh, here's the other thing. Last time I'm saying, then we're going to cut these up. Is that the beautiful thing with the whole fresh living foods is we can use every part of the food. So we're going to use the whole cayenne pepper, right, which is excellent for our circulation. Right, if you're very clogged and stagnant, or if you're one of those people, my body temperature runs very cold, only have half of the thyroid, I had a partial thyroidectomy. So if you're one of those people that feels very cold with eating whole living foods, cayenne and fresh ginger, these things are excellent to keep your body warm, and also excellent for your metabolism, right? Keeping your body nice and warm. Then we have the mint, which is excellent for sweet breath. All of this chlorophyll is excellent for an internal deodorant. Right? Literally eternal deodorant. I remember back in the day when I first learned about chlorophyll, I would go buy these bottles of chlorophyll. But over the years, with each and every year, it's been several decades, every year I would eat more and more and more fruits and vegetables. So it got to the point where my food bill was going down, yet the weight of my bags, my recycled produce bags, was getting heavier and heavier. So the more fresh, unprocessed foods I purchased, my food bill went down. It just meant my bags were a lot heavier. And it also meant I had to cut things up, right? I just couldn't just eat it like pasta, and then the pasta and the starch melts inside of my mouth, right? Which also contributes to us having bone problems, because there's no more crunch and there's no more chew. It's just a bunch of processed flour where the fiber and the endosperm has been removed, and you're sucking on starch. So a lot of times we're starchitarians. Even as so-called vegans and vegetarians, a lot of times it's still highly processed because we're looking for that sensory comfort. So in contrast, look how much water and fiber. So I'm going to use the whole cayenne pepper. I can actually cut and trim this off the top of it, right? And I can plant this, I can sprout, and I can sprout this to grow more pineapple, believe it or not. Hint, hint. Y'all might just want to start grabbing some of these seeds up now. Because they're increasingly producing more things that have been compromised and don't have seeds. And also, you're going to learn so much that is not in the book by putting your hands inside the food. So we can also use the skin of the pineapple. So that's for one of our pineapple teas that you can have warm, right? Because it's colder months now. You can mix that. We have some mixtures and teas, or you can have it chilled. It's a wonderful alternative to all of that Kool-Aid. That's just pure chemicals. And then maybe without really being present to it, as mothers, we're passing a lot of habits down to our children because children don't what? Children don't buy groceries. And maybe out of ignorance or perhaps even out of convenience or misinformation, we're not considering that we're contributing to, we're not giving our children's brains the best opportunity. And I know people don't want to hear, I ain't telling no grown folks what to do because I ain't trying to have y'all come after me. But every Easter, Christmas, Halloween, big business, Valentine's Day, candy. So once you start creating addiction and playing around with dopamine, it's hard to pull those addictive tendencies back in. The most important thing is we're compromising our children's brains, their ability to focus. We're compromising our own ability to focus. Right now, we are losing the ability physiologically to focus. It's becoming harder and harder to focus and maintain our own attention. Add to that all the stuff flipping on the screen, constantly scrolling. So it's not very good for the brain. So all it says whole, fresh, living water. This has weight to it. I can use the skin, and I make the effort to use every single thing I can. And when I can't squeeze any more out of it, then whatever's left over is going to go into the compost. So green water, we're going to use all of this. I'm going to use all of this mint. So let's cut this up. We also have the option. Oh, other thing is I constantly keep these little containers to the side. I don't know if you can see. So I have cucumber seeds here. I have watermelon seeds here. I have bell pepper seeds here. I have tomato seeds here. I have sesame seeds. I just named at least 5 different plants. Again, that's our goal in Flower Fit community, is to start to empower ourselves to grow food. You already paid for it at the market. What do you have to lose by putting it in the ground? This is going to teach you in a way. You're going to get information that you would never get out of a book, right? You're also going to start to notice if your produce doesn't have any seeds, what's the significance of it? So rather than just going with the rhetoric, you'll have a whole paradigm shift and light bulbs will go off when you start handling your own food. All right, so let me get the cutting board, right? I'm going to grab, let's say a knife. And let's say, which knife do we have here? We have our serrated to the teeth, and then we have our chef's knife. So you want to make sure, never press your thumb right down it. You want to make sure that your knives stay nice and sharp, because the easiest way to cut yourself is with a dull knife. So let's go ahead and cut up our pineapple. So I'm going to use the serrated knife. All right, so I'm going to cut that off. I can take and I can trim this later. I can actually just pull all of this off right here. I'm going to compost this later. So once I start pulling all of that other stuff off, I'm going to pull all this stuff. I'm going to trim this. And this part, I can actually sprout the top of the pineapple, and then I can plant it, right? Now, it may not grow the same. It's likely not going to grow the same if you're in a cold climate. Yet you can play around with your grow lights. You can play around with your grow lights and your temperature in order to mimic the environment of that plant. So I'm going to put the skins to the side. I'm going to put that to the side for tea. All right. So I got to give a special shout out to my homies. My homies that are down and that are consistent in Sunday coaching. So this is whole living foods and fitness, not a diet. It's a lifestyle. I can give 2 peach pits what label you want to put on yourself. It's not the label. It's the results. It's the results. And in our 20s, so I'm just cutting around the pineapple, right? So I cut the 2 tips off and I'm cutting around the pineapple, and I'm using the serrated knife. So if every meal is medicine, right? And I'm going to cut some of the eyes off again. If you're eating these little parts of the eye on the pineapple, this can also cause irritation to your mouth. So take the time to just trim some of that off. And again, if you have a lot of the flesh, you can also save that and put that inside your tea. And guess what? Your tea doesn't need any sweetener, right? So a lot of us are getting a lot of additional sugar, and it's processed refined sugar. Distinction is that you now have energy, aka sugar, aka carbohydrate, and people love to lump all the carbohydrates together, right? But there's no nutrition in it. Look at all of this water and fiber. This is just going to clean my colon out. This is just going to clean my colon, right? And it's hydrating. A whole pineapple, if I ate a whole entire pineapple, right? If being that everybody has a sweet tooth, That's only approximately 250 calories, virtually no fat, right? So I'd be better off eating a whole pineapple than a whole packet of M&Ms. And I used to love M&Ms too. All right, so we have our pineapple. So I'm gonna put that into a bowl. And actually, I'm so curious. I like to be a scientist. Let's see, right? Because in our coaching, sometimes we like to be scientists, right? So I invite you to consider, and this can be fun to do with a child, or even if you're bored, you can take your digital scale and you can see what a serving size is. So I find that the scale is much more accurate than only going by the cups, right? So if you do the cups, you have dry measure, you have liquid measure. You're trying sometimes to force these big pieces of food into these cups. So I find that it's much more accurate to use the digital scale. And you don't have to do it forever. Though initially, many of us don't have a frame of reference for what an actual serving size of food is. So if I take, I'm going to take and zero out my scale. Let me just turn this over. So I'm going to turn the scale on. I'm going to press the tare button to zero it out. The scale can go between grams and ounces. And let's see how much pineapple we got here. This was one small, medium, I'll say medium-sized pineapple that we cut the skin off. So we want all the fiber. So that one pineapple, let me get a little dish towel over here. The one pineapple is giving us, after we trimmed everything off, is 15.9 ounces. Right? And 16 ounces is 1 pound. So that's a good amount of food. That's almost 16 ounces of pineapple, right? From one pineapple, that's 16 ounces. Now, a serving size, a typical serving size, right, is usually 4 ounces, right? That's typically 4 ounces or half a cup. But again, not everything can fit. It's going to be harder to fit some of these things in the cup. And if I cut it up smaller, more can fit in there. So when you're trying to figure out what the serving size is, I recommend you go at grams. I also know if you go back and forth between grams and ounces, 28 grams equals 1 ounce. Now, why is this important? How can this be beneficial? For many of us, understanding the amount, even though it's natural, the amount of sugar in food can be very important to find in what I would call your sweet spot, right? And what is a sweet spot? I like to say the sweet spot is when you eat a meal of whole, fresh, living, unprocessed foods, right? Or any meal, but especially here, this is our focus. And you are satiated. The best diet is one of satiation, where you get up and like, I'm just not hungry. If I offered you a delicious slice of live carrot cake, you're like, I really want to eat that cake, but I'm so satisfied. It will feel like I'm overstuffing myself because I'm full. So there's the physical feeling of satiation. There's also the smell, and the color is satisfying. That smells absolutely delicious. That like makes my mouth water. So I physically feel the cues, the physical sensation. Hey, greetings. There you go. So I can feel the physical sensation of fullness, right? It's a balance between, I don't feel stuffed, like I just had a whole meal of oxtails, which I used to eat oxtails. I used to eat everything under the sun. But I don't feel heavy and sluggish, like I'm about to pass out and go to sleep, right? Another distinction is all the water and the fiber. Also, all these different foods have different types of nutrients in it. One of the nutrients inside of, or the elements of nutrition inside the pineapple is the bromelain, BROMELAIN. So it's a digestive enzyme. This is really good for helping us to break up old food that's in the system. So this is hydrating. Again, my acne, hydrating your skin, I'm eating living water. That's one of my biggest distinctions. So bigger than vegan. Vegan is not saying enough. Vegan or vegetarian or just distinctions I like to use in when I want to distinguish what I would like to be served or fed, right? So that's what I prefer. It's a journey. I don't think it really benefits us to shame each other for where we are in our journey, because it's been like 30 years or something for me. So I don't think it needs to take you so long, but the distinctions can help you get real clear faster. Then you just want to be creative with your recipes and what you're serving. So again, that's almost a pound of pineapple. I can use this in a sauce. I can use this in a salsa. I can make a candy. I can put this in the ice cream, right? Just think about your great-great-great-great-grandmothers, right? They couldn't shop everywhere. So if it took them a while to grow a pineapple, I remember it took me months to grow one pineapple. I'm not likely to waste it. So I'm likely going to cut a spot off. The creatures or the ants can get their piece and I'm going to get mine. You're less likely to waste when you're involved in the growing process, right? All right, so that's my pineapple. The greens that we just washed, and I'm going to take all the pineapple skin and I'm going to put it in a bowl so that we can make a tea from that later. And I'm going to save the top because the top is what we're going to sprout so we can grow some pineapple. And there are so many different types of pineapple. So those folks that are going to be here in June around mango season and avocado season. Yeah, mango and avocado, you get to experience that. So let's rinse off our greens because we did just pull these out of the ground. So you can use, some people use sea salt. Sometimes I like to use cider vinegar to rinse my greens off. So you want to make sure you get your bowl nice and full. And I recommend that you fully immerse the greens inside of the water. Don't just, well, let me make it clear. So when I first was learning to handle fresh greens, because I grew up with fresh frozen spinach, that was fresh. It was frozen. I thought that was better than the can. I remember taking spinach and just running my hand a bunch of spinach quickly under the water, and then I made my dish, and it tastes like I was eating ground up glass and dirt because I didn't immerse the greens in the water. I didn't know any better. So I'm gonna immerse the greens in water. So make sure you're swishing it around. You can use a little bit of sea salt. You can use a little bit of cider vinegar. I keep backup cider vinegar sometimes to rinse my greens. Give it several rinses and then pour all the salt water off. If you're doing off-grid style, you may have a container. You may have a container that you catch your water and your rainwater. And if you're paying by water, I know we may take it for granted in the city, but a lot of times I would have a whole bucket right next to me and I would save the water that you're paying for and I would empty it out into rain buckets. I have a big barrel outside and empty the water outside. So then I have backup water. I know most people don't think about a drought, but I think like that. So give your greens a good wash, especially if it's out in the garden. You want to make sure there's no caterpillar eggs or anything on the back of your greens because the creatures want to eat too, right? And sometimes people get grossed out by that, but it's a garden. Some people get grossed out, but if you see activity inside of the soil and the dirt, that's a good thing because that's telling you don't have dirt, you have soil. Huge, that's a big distinction. So I'm not going to use the Vitamix. If you have a little NutriBullet, you could go to town with a NutriBullet if you're on a budget. So these greens are very tender greens. I'm not even going to use all the pineapple at one time. So for a long time, many years, I didn't use any kind of ice cubes or anything. You can use ice cubes, it's up to you. That's just going to stretch it out more. Or if you're making your food in the morning, you're carrying it with you, you can put ice cubes in it. And then once you have it inside of your little food bag, when it's time for you to get your go get your lunch or your little snack or your breakfast, right? Then it's going to be nice and chilled. So where's my little, it's right here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a pinch of the cayenne pepper. I'm putting a little pinch of cayenne pepper and I'm putting a little piece of mint. So I'm putting a little pinch of cayenne pepper. That's my recipe. Why I want that little bit of spice, right? So I'm going to put half of that cayenne pepper in it because I know that sucker's potent. And I'm going to rinse my hands because I have a tendency to put my hands in my face, and that cayenne pepper is potent. I don't want to burn my face. So let's blend it. Filtered water in there. I don't want anything too watery. So if you find your stuff is getting stuck inside, you can add like a little drop of water just so it can take off and start spinning. So use the cleanest water that you have available to you. All right, so just in terms of serving sizes, now this is a whole lot of water and fiber. This might be more greens than some people are getting all day. So this is like half of a pineapple in here with a good portion of those greens and half of the cayenne pepper. So now that it's broken down, all of those greens, right? I can add more pineapple if I want, so that I can share some with my sister. Or you can also make another portion. I'm going to add some more greens. So I have the cayenne pepper in here and I have the mint. Cayenne pepper, mint, pineapple, and fresh greens. So these are the tender greens. So I find tender greens, ooh, they're delicious, especially when you pick them when they're nice and fresh. That's a lot of greens. So if I want to, I can add some ice cubes. If I want, so this is a good amount of greens. So for those folks that have been hanging out with me for a year or plus in Flower Fit, we're not using a whole bunch of powders. Now I've done every protein powder on the market. We're eating real food. It can't get any simpler than that. So this is the texture of it. If I wanted to, I can make it as loose. I can use it as a pudding if I wanted to fill myself up. Hint, hint. For those folks that, and I'll be honest, just when you get some new information or after you take a workshop, or I did the 7-day this program or the 30-day, a lot of our conditioning, I'm a realist, it hasn't disappeared, right? So it is likely you will still have the inclination to self-soothe. So once you are clear and you're honest about that, you can use that to your advantage. So something that you can do, this is already naturally sweet. Oh, that's actually good. Ooh. Oh my God. It tastes balanced. I got a little hint of heat. So I didn't make it so hot that it's not palatable. It's going to burn your stomach, right? That's actually quite delicious. If I ate this, I would be stuffed in the evening. This is not even 300 calories, right? If I was looking at that. And also in terms of the fiber, for those people that are watching their carbs or whatever, because I'm not low carb, but there are ways you can work all of this stuff, whatever label you want to call it. Yeah, this is not even 300 calories. If I ate this late at night, while your boo thing is eating his, whatever chicken wings or whatever they ordered, you'll be right as rain. You'll feel physiologically satiated. The best diet is satiation. Now, I could also stretch this. This actually, I could eat this just like this. I could eat it as a pudding. But the flavor of it tastes sweet. It's a naturally sweet. It's not overly sweet. It's a difference when you're eating the food fresh. I cannot emphasize that enough. So I'm going to add a bit of ice cubes to this so I can stretch it. I can put some in another container for later. And then I can also share some with my sister. Let me grab some ice cubes.
What type of greens are you using?
Child, I'm using the greens right out the yard.
Okay.
Let me get some ice cubes out of here.
Because I have a bunch of collard greens. That's why I asked.
Okay, so this is a good question. So if you're using collard greens, right? Collard greens, unless you just pull them out, those are more, they're a more potent green, right? So those greens with that more leathery texture, like the kale and the collards, you don't need as much of it. So you're going to want to balance it out. This is like the tater leaf. So these are very, very tender. You know how sometimes you buy the microgreens in the bag or the baby kales and the baby lettuce, and you see they're very tender. They pick those greens. Sometimes they're growing them only to a certain point. So they still very young, but they're very, very tender, right? So they're not, the texture isn't as leathery and they're more, sometimes more palatable. So if you're using, because I will blend a collard, I will blend any green that I have. Mustard is a little more tricky because that's more potent because of that mustard, that sulfury kind of flavor. But you can use collard. You just would use a fraction of it, and I would likely take the stem out of it because it's such a strong, potent stem. But I could use this with collards. I will adjust, and you'll develop your hand over time. I will adjust the recipe for whatever's coming out of the ground. That's what I'm eating. right? And so collards is something that you can grow easily. And actually collards and kale, you can also grow them in certain types of container setups. And you can grow them in the winter. You can grow it in the winter and in the summer. So yes, you can use collards, but I would just cut the thick stem out of it, and I might not use as much, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm going to add some ice cubes. Hold on. Probably add more ice cubes in that. So again, some people might, and I don't know if I would say a purist, but I've done all kinds of experiments, especially somebody that's run cold. So let me add a little bit more ice cubes to this. So I was very, very, some people might consider me strict. It's not about the label, but when you've ever dealt with a condition, whether you're healing from, it could be cancer, it could be IBS. For me, it was acne. Having half of my thyroid removed. A lot of times people come to changing their food when they're dealing with something. That's usually, and unfortunately, sometimes we get really, really serious. So for a long time, I didn't use any ice cubes, right? It may seem like a small thing, but once I start educating myself about something, I'm like, okay, if I'm doing room temperature, because at that point, my goal is to make my body as hospitable as possible to the healing process, if that makes sense. So years later, I stopped drinking any kind of hot teas for a long time. I only did sun teas for many years. Years later, I would say it's been, I think, going on 13 years eating living foods as my lifestyle, whole, fresh, living, unprocessed foods. A couple things I have added back are warm and hot tea. And also in preparing food, because quite often I'm preparing food, for my friends and folks when they come over. So not everybody wants to drink a room temperature smoothie, right? So I'm sensitive to who, or, your family members are, right? You want to be considerate. I think it's important to be considerate of your family members. And then it's just a matter of maybe I take out my portion if I want it just room temperature, and I put some ice cubes in it for them, right? I want to make things pleasant, right? As this is a lifestyle. So all I did was add a little bit of ice cubes. And I'll save some for my sister right there. I could also put some inside of a container. Now, most of the time people say smoothies. I think we have a tendency, not making right or wrong, but we want to look at the ease of digestion. Sometimes we've made the smoothie so complex, so much bitter greens. And if you're new or getting started, you could sometimes add so much stuff to it that it's not so enjoyable anymore, right? So initially, keeping things simple, I think, can go a long way in your lifestyle being sustainable, right? So we change up the texture. So, and actually, this is a really nice serving size. If I want to, I can put some apple slices on the top. And notice I did not load this up with a whole bunch of, I didn't even put any bananas in it. Right? So again, these are little nuances that can be, even with living foods, can be adjusted to the person. If you're pre-diabetic, this is still natural sugars, but we may want to find the sweet spot of sugar for you, right? Of natural sugars, right? And fiber. So I didn't put a whole lot of bananas in. It was really, really simple. You have the pineapple. This is a good amount of juice. It's a lot of fiber. It smells delicious. It's green. Some of you may not be used to eating green, but I tell you one thing. Your body's going to be smelling sweeter because it's natural chlorophyll. Your breath will smell sweeter. And you have all of that fiber and all of that hydration in your system. And it's just got that was the perfect amount of cayenne pepper. It just has like a little teeny bite, right? And most people may not be expecting spice inside of, or a little bit of heat inside of a smoothie, but it's a nice balance. So we're usually looking to balance out, so if you put the chef's hat on, we're usually looking to balance out food flavors: sweet, salty, sour, and spicy, right? So we have a balance that also will go a long way in terms of you feeling very, very satiated. If I wanted to, I could get jazzy snazzy, and I could take a cute little bowl. I could take a little bowl of the green sprout, not the lentil sprouts, right? Because this has sweetening. We want to watch our food combinations. I can take baby greens or baby lettuces, and I can put a bed of baby lettuces or greens or leafy sprouts or sunflower sprouts in here. This is a lot of protein. I can pour my smoothie and make it like a smoothie bowl and put this inside. And then I can also cut up tangerines. You will be so satiated. Right? So I say this to say, usually when we're trying to make certain changes, if you pull something out, you want to put something in its place, right? So it's sweet, it's refreshing, it feels satiated because of all the fiber in there. You can also, which will probably be pretty full, but you can also chase that if you are a person whose body runs cold. You can have one of your warmer teas after. And then you can be satisfied and you're not giving your body a whole lot of heavy things to digest in the evening. This can go a long way in allowing your body to heal. You're not making the body work super hard, so it can digest this with ease. And then it can take that extra energy and it can do repair work, right? To our immune system, to our colon, or whatever other issues that you have going on. Digestion is one of the processes that takes up the most energy inside of the body. So, any questions? Because then we're going to get ready to go into the second part of our coaching. Let me know if you have any questions. This is actually delicious. That's good. You can feel free.
So I have a question. I have a bunch of collard greens as well as apples. I have a lot. So what do you think about that combination? The collard green and apples, is that good?
Collard greens and apples. Let me see. How would I do collard greens and apples? I would probably do more apples.
Okay.
I'd probably do apples, 1 or 2 apples. I'd probably almost make it like an applesauce smoothie. I'd more than likely take the juice of a lemon or half a lemon or lime, because a lot of times limes can be less expensive than lemon. I like the flavor of lime. I would take the apples, take the core out, wash it good, because I like to use the peels also of it. All this is great pectin inside for your colon. So I would take the apples, maybe 1 or 2 or even 3 apples blended up. If I use 3 apples, I would use the whole lemon, and I would take a bit of collard greens, maybe 1 or 2 leaves, take the rib out, and then I would blend that.
Okay.
Blend it up, and then I could even have that as a smoothie bowl, right? If I wanted to, or I can make it a smoothie bowl, and then let's say if I blend up 2 apples inside the smoothie, I put a bed of greens. Let's say if it's in the evening, right, for this cycle that we're moving into, to help us get out of, if there's any area you're plateauing at. This can go because you're not adding any salt and you feel satiated. I would take the leftover apple and I would grate that on top of the smoothie bowl. So I would have the greens inside of the base. Then I would add the smoothie, right? And then I would put grated apple on top. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
And then I would follow that also with a cup of tea. And I would feel super satiated because of the amount of water and fiber. So some of these different styles of or different ways of eating or different ways of preparing your meals can be a paradigm shift, because we're so used to thinking, I gotta have salt, I gotta have something fried, I gotta have a dehydrated wrap, and it's not. We want to give the body a rest. Distinction now, we're not depriving, I'm never saying deprive the body of nutrition, because that's part of what keeps us on the back and forth. The back and forth is almost like a sometimes it could be a binge purge thing, like with you give into cravings or withdrawal, which is what it really is for a lot of us. When you're triggered, you have an out-of-body experience and you're eating whatever is the closest thing to you. Even if you're vegan, it might be cookies or eating handfuls of nuts. Ask me how I know. So when you're in your right state of mind is when you want to make sure you're preparing some things. And usually I like to put another portion to the side, right? So I have something to take with me to work, or I have really good containers that I'll take with me that can keep things hot for hot water, for tea, or chilled. So I have a second portion. Or when I get home and I'm coming in, sometimes that's a tricky area when you come in and you're stressed and you just want something to eat. You want something to eat now, or you're about to prepare food for another family member. This would be a great option, right? Or even the thing that we mentioned with the collards and the apples, right? But you can actually keep things very simple. And there's actually protein inside all of your greens. So it's different. We've gotten so normalized to thinking that protein is inside of a powder. And I'm saying this to everybody that's done every egg white protein, whey protein, vegan protein, rice protein. The longer you're on this path, you're going to see like, wait a minute. It's after a while, light bulbs are going to go up. I don't need to eat a secondhand protein. I'm getting more than enough. And some people are like, why don't I look emaciated if I'm eating raw vegan or raw foods? I like to say whole, fresh, living, unprocessed food because I eat. I'm eating over here. I eat over here. But it's different. If each meal is medicine, it's hydrating, and it smells good, and it's it's different. You may need to adjust your eyes to green, but there are also other things in the rainbow. But this, we call this over here, right? This is called money for the body. This is like, pay me. Like some people at the club that like make it rain. You want to make it rain with your green juice. The texture is nice. It's not too thick. So some of us may be very sensitive to textures like okra or crunchy, or if our palate is used to the heavy starch and then the oil and the salt and the texture, we're very sensitive to textures and temperatures and presentation. So I don't know. Sometimes it can be a setup to act like, well, I'm just vegan. I don't eat this and this and that anymore. You might be setting yourself up. And next thing you be binging on some Kit Kats in the corner. Or some Reese's peanut butter cups in the corner. So if we have treats and things that taste delicious and things to look forward to, that's going to go a long way in us. Our lifestyle being sustainable. We need things to look forward to. I don't play games with that. Right? I tell you, I study junkies for a reason. People don't believe me, but you need some things to take the edge off that are pleasurable, some things to look forward to. Right? So let me take a quick sip, and we're gonna get into part 2. For those folks, if you don't, or not again, I only have to rinse this stuff out with some water. I don't even need dishwashing liquid. So I'm not scrubbing any pots and any pans, none of that. And then when it's time for you to get up in the morning for a 5 a.m. workout, you have a nice, smooth elimination, smooth and floating like snakes. It's like heaven. It's floating up on the water. Nothing hard, dried pebbles, right? Because your elimination, the texture of it, is telling a lot as to whether your body is dried out. So we're getting a lot of natural hydration from the best filtered water on the planet, which is being filtered through the fruits and vegetables. So for those folks, if you have a copy, or if you don't have a copy, Whole Living Foods in the Hood with menus to fit your budget. There's several lists with pictures in there. I took pictures of the receipts and of the different types of shops, whether you're going to the wholesaler, which is what I did. I shopped at the food co-op. The wholesaler with a fruit and vegetable stand was going to get their produce from, the farmer's market, the food co-op, and the wholesaler. So that can save you a lot of money. It just means that you're likely going to have to chop and you're going to have to chew, right? Which is a small price to pay. That's also going to keep you more satiated. And the food, your body knows what to do when you give it real food. This body is divinely designed. It has a whole nother response to imitation of faux meats, which I used to do all of the faux meats and imitation meats and try to make everything taste like a piece of chicken or whatever. Okay, it's a part of your mouth, but what does your immune system and your cells have to say? Your cells and your nervous system know the difference with the things that you're putting into it. So if you don't have a copy, get Whole Living Foods in the Hood menus to fit your budget. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. And we're going to continue on with our Sunday coaching system. Y'all have a great day. We out of here.
Can you share the link for that book? You have the link?
I have the links.
I don't think I have the link. Oh, is it in the thread?
If you don't, I'll put it in. It's on the website.
Okay. I'll put it in. Okay.
That's delicious. So let me not drink my sister's portion. So let me see what's in the chat. Is that you, Tamika, in the chat? What types of grains? So that's a sweet potato leaf. Okay. I'm not even sure. I turned off the TikTok. But what we do want to go over is talk about the cholesterol. And Tracy shared some information. I love it when the light bulbs go off because, as I said, I know it's a matter of time. When you get so clear, nobody will be able to pay you to eat certain things. It's mindset, and its clarity is worth its weight in gold. So, Tracy, do you want to share with us what you found out in your research this week?
Yes, I can share. So I had my annual appointment with my doctor. It's weird. And I was saying, I think I shared before that my like cholesterol numbers seemed concerning when I started comparing the reports. So like last year when I went to my doctor, I had been consistently taking my cholesterol and high blood pressure medicine, and my numbers were low. So he was happy. Okay, no big deal. So then changed my lifestyle, started working out, all the things. I took myself off of the medicine. No one else told me to do that. I took myself off of the medicine. And so from June up until now, and I said, when I go to the doctor, I'll get my baseline. And I think I shared in the chat, it wasn't my intention to make it public, but anyway, I said I was concerned about the numbers. So then I started doing a little bit of research because the majority of what I've been eating does not have cholesterol. So how is it that my numbers could be high? It doesn't make sense to me.
By the way, weight loss.
Right.
That's significant.
Right. So yes, I had significant weight loss. My A1C was good, but my cholesterol numbers were high. So then I started doing some research on YouTube and different doctors. So consistently, the one I shared with you, Claus, is probably like the fourth or fifth one that I've listened to that have basically said the same thing. So it's not like he's just this random, oh, it's saying what I wanted to say, and I decided to share that. So anyway, basically they're saying the test is kind of antiquated and you don't get a full picture when you get your lab results from the doctor. This particular doctor was saying the overall cholesterol number doesn't tell you anything at all. And then when we're talking about the LDL and the HDL and the triglycerides, so it's really your triglycerides is the important number to be looking at. And that you want to look at the ratio between your triglycerides and your HDL. And that ratio is gives you a better indicator of whether or not you're going to have heart disease or whatever, because he went into how the triglycerides tell you how your body's processing the sugar, how your liver is processing the sugar. And basically if that number's high and out of whack, then you got too much sugar in your body anyway.
So I want to point out distinction because we talked about this a lot in the early day in terms of coaching. And so I think it's like almost have children. You go out and you do your research. It's something that clicks when you're like, okay, ding, 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 ding. He's talking about sugar. When people think cholesterol, they're only thinking of meat or meat products. People are not considering, we've talked about stress and how the body responds with plaquing the arteries, right? And then also that's one distinction. Number two, the body makes most of its own cholesterol. Number three, which I think you're very clear on, you're eating a good portion, I would even say a majority now of your intake, of your consumption pattern is fresh fruits and vegetables. There's no additional cholesterol in the plant kingdom and queendom. Right. So then you got clear on several things, right? So when we were talking about this before, I suggested, I was like, well, where's the research on the people that have dramatically altered their lifestyle, their body composition, and their eating? It'd be interesting to research and see which one of them their doctors took them off the medication. Have you heard anybody mention that? That's number one. And then number two, the doctor recommend. It's nice when it comes out of their mouths. Those that take the time to educate themselves. That you hear all the time. I think it's for legal purposes. They'll say before you start exercise, before you change your diet, consult with your doctor. But how many doctors have you ever been to that make eating recommendations for you, or that are really breaking down? So he said the doctors don't even know. Right. The doctors don't even know. And then also we've spoke about, let's say, as Black women, as a group, as people of the Afro diaspora, women of a certain age group, how much of the test how many tests are done on our particular group, right? Then consider how much testing is done on those people who live plant-based. Right. So it's really important. Sometimes we think, it's not a big deal. We don't make those distinctions, but they're important distinctions. Let's say you make all these changes. If your cholesterol is still high, could it be possible that long term, the medications that you take alter your body's ability in terms of producing cholesterol and maintain it elevated? Right. These are things that we don't think about because and rightfully so, we're in such a panic when you're told you're in a danger zone. But a lot of times the information is not given to us in a whole context. Okay. That's missing. And if the doctors are not eating that much different than you eating, right, then I'm just saying, I'm not saying there's no relevance to allopathic or Western medicine. That's not what I'm saying. Yet I don't think there's any way around, as I say, we're on our own, really getting clear on it's our responsibility to do the research and the footwork and ask those discerning questions and be informed consumers about medication. That's what's going to help you get clear. Right. About
I want to share real quick. So I had my test results from last year. So last year, my triglycerides were at 83 milligrams, whatever it is, 83. And my HDL was 39. Last year, my overall cholesterol was 123. So it's supposed to be under 200 according to them, the scale. My HDL was 39. My triglycerides was 83. And my LDL was 67. So remember, I was taking the medication. I was eating like crap, but I was taking the medication. This year, my overall cholesterol is 250. It's supposed to be under 200. I don't know why it's 250, but whatever. My HDL is 62. It was 39 last year. Wow. And my triglycerides are 64. And so last year it was 83. Oh, so, wow. So if my triglycerides indicate what my liver was doing, then it's better now than it was then because that number should be low. But what he said in that thing was you really want to look at the ratio between your triglycerides and your HDL. So last year, that ratio for me was 2 point something. This year, what did I say? My HDL is 62 and my triglycerides is 64. That's almost a 1-to-1 ratio. So that makes sense. What he was saying makes sense. And like I said, he was probably like the 5th video that I've watched and they all kind of said the same things. He just broke it down a little simpler than the other ones did. And so that helped me a lot because to help make it make sense. Because like I said, I know for this past year, the majority of my food have been whole, fresh living food. It's been cholesterol free, no added cholesterol. So how is this? What is happening? And what do I need to look at? So I think it is helpful to know. And these are things I am going to go back and ask my doctor. And my doctor didn't say, I guess he's making an assumption I'm taking the medicine. But he already knows I'm the problem child when it comes to that anyway. So that's not a big deal.
I would never do this.
You couldn't tell me. You didn't tell me. I did it myself because one, especially for the heart, for the blood pressure medication, when I was taking it still, because I guess my pressure was lowering naturally, I felt like it was too low once I took the medicine, if that makes sense. And that had a different effect on me. So I was like, well, I'm just not gonna take it, and it's fine. I wasn't taking it before, and
pause for a second. That's an important distinction. And Tamika, did you hear what you said about the overall cholesterol being under 200? Right?
Yeah.
So that's what the numbers are. Now, it's not often that you hear somebody has made conscientious changes to adding the fitness, and you can stand and say, I've been eating primarily whole, fresh, living, unprocessed foods, have dramatically changed your fitness, your cardiovascular health, your flexibility, in terms of getting lots of fiber, for you to do all of that with the research on those people and also with the feedback. So if you're not educated to be a conscientious consumer, I kind of feel like you're always at the whim of whoever the expert of the day is. And I think a big difference I want to highlight with you, and that we all have our strong points, is that willingness to research, because that might be a big stretch for our parents. Let's say, right? Somebody just says you have high cholesterol, take this medication. So the lingo, or they're not familiar with the internet, or no one's saying it in lay terms, they might not have it, the wherewithal to go research somebody putting this information into layman's terms, right? So they can comprehend it. Does that make sense? That's a huge distinction. So for you to take the time to do the compare and contrast, say, wait a minute. So, there's no way that I shifted all of this body composition. I ate all these fruits and vegetables. I did all of this work, and I don't see, I'm still here. There's no way. So having the willingness to go into research and to see the patterns is key. And it can also make you feel, in a very real way, confident that you're on the right path. I think it's so important to know that what you're doing is beneficial. Without that, people get frustrated and they stop and they give up. And it applies as a principle across to your brain, your breasts, the health of your breasts, the health of your womb. A lot of times we feel so panicked when we get a diagnosis, whatever age you are, as a young woman. Someone's like, well, I just intuitively felt like something in my throat. I said, that's weird, because I'm usually pretty in tune. I went to the doctor. It was like, oh, we don't know if I went to a biopsy. I was a young woman, young mother by myself. So they didn't really communicate a lot with me. I don't know if I would have had them take out half of my thyroid. I was by myself. I felt panic. And when somebody said the word cancer, I'm like, I got stuff to do. I have a child. So that kind of pressure, and you're on your own, I knew I was determined. I'm not going to be on any medications. I was willing to eat seaweeds, do all the research. I was willing to do all of that. But once somebody mentions the word cancer, and I'm not saying there's no relevance to it, but just the pressure that you're under, you may be by yourself, making these decisions. So I was like, oh, well, I'll take the scar. I'll take the keloid, So just support. I think support, comprehensive support, is so important. Also, our willingness to take on the responsibility of doing the research, even if you don't know everything, to educate yourself and having a sounding board. Also, the things that you are implementing consistently, they do make a difference. It's not insignificant. All those fruits and vegetables and the green water and the recipes in the class. You've been investing in yourself. All of you have been investing in your education, right? You've been investing in your time on Sundays, and we watch, I don't know how many videos, learning about your body type. Just the education, it makes a big difference. So comprehensive education and hands-on and asking your questions, it makes a big difference. It makes a huge difference. So I just really wanted to acknowledge it, because I rarely hear somebody asking these questions. It's whatever the doctor says, it's almost like religion. We just go by that. At what point do we go the extra mile to go? And there are videos, there is education to be had online. Most people will come to natural health after the doctors told them there's nothing else I can do for you. Then, after you've already got cut on and all this other stuff, then you go to the natural holistic sanitariums and go for the raw food and all that other stuff. When there's a lot that could be preventative, right? If we just knew this stuff. So if you have grandchildren or nieces or other, if somebody was just giving you fresh fruits and vegetables and it would be a no-brainer. That's why I'm so passionate, I say, about reintroducing the ways of the mothers and the grandmothers. I would even call this hygiene. I would even say it's hygiene, right? We think hygiene is Jean-Ate and spraying some perfume around your private parts. Your hygiene is also brain hygiene, mental, emotional hygiene, and as well as your body odors, what you're eating, right? It's also hygiene for the cells and for the immune system. So thank you so much for sharing that, Tracy, and also the video that you put into the chat. So we're going to share that in the Flower Fit coaching session, because it was really, really good. It was really, really good. And I love the education, because that's how you get really, really clear. Sometimes you feel like you're faltering or you're having an out-of-body experience. You'd be better off falling blindly into a whole vat of pineapple with some greens than just going for the Entenmann's or those other comfort foods. Your education and having different experiences can help you with that, if that makes sense. So, Tracy, you said you're going to make another appointment to ask some more questions of your doctor?
Yes, because he actually felt like my thyroid was swollen or whatever. So he sent me for a scan. So once those results come back, I'm sure I'll have a follow-up with him with that. And then I will just ask him more questions about the cholesterol and all of that. So that's why I'm doing my research to try to get my little list together so he can hold him accountable.
So I was also for the flowers and the group. Sometimes when I'm speaking, I don't know, I might sound like a broken record, but this is also why I'm passionate on getting also certain things into our intake patterns, like the sea vegetables, right? There's so many things now that the first time I take that, like, I paid full price for stuff and doing it in the garbage. But there's starting to grow some food on your own in your yard, starting to implement sea vegetables has a lot of the minerals in it. The minerals are very important for the glands, right? Initially, when I had the surgery for my thyroid, they put me on Synthera, and I was like, I'm not doing the medication. Y'all are kicking it. So I researched everything. What I came up was sea vegetable sea moss. This is years ago, over 25 years ago. So I was willing to keep seaweed on deck: dulse, wakame, arame, nori, untoasted nori. Like, just include that as a regular part of my intake, right? I also understand my movement practice is not just the food. If the body is so clogged, a lot of times we're not able to absorb fully and take advantage of these expensive supplements of foods because the body is so clogged. So again, when you're doing certain things as a habit on a regular basis, the body has to clear out in order for you to be able to make use of it. One of my mentors used to tell me a lot of people are not absorbing a lot of these expensive nutrients they're taking because the body's so clogged. So imagine spending a bunch of money on expensive detox tablets and they just coming out in your poop, right? Because the body is so dried out, it's so stuck and stagnant. So again, a lot of times we're not being given information in a whole context. So it's really going to be on us, right, to sit down and strategize and think long term about the effects of all of our different consumption patterns, right? Because then after we burned and depleted the body with so much caffeine, so much alcohol, so much weed, so much fried food, it's not on our radar. Not to make ourselves bad or wrong, it's the urgency to really have as a foundation foods that your immune system can recognize. The urgency isn't there. Is that making sense? What I'm saying? And it's definitely not there in our 20s. Right. And a lot of times it's not being modeled. So if you don't have a frame of reference, how the heck would you know? But yet you're being told, just ask your doctor. Yeah, right. You're on your own. Hey, Stacey, you have any feedback?
I have a question. So what I heard from that is that the numbers we should be concerned about is the triglyceride and the HDL, and the ratio should be on more of a 1-to-1 ratio. Is that the understanding that I'm getting here?
It's not
similar. I was gonna say similar, but I posted the video in our homework section, so you can watch it again for yourself. I don't want to misquote what he said to tell you anything different, but I was just sharing my numbers, and so the ratio reduced from last year with me taking the medication from a 2 down to a 1, a 1% ratio. So that has to be, that's better. And that's along the lines where you want it to be. It's like under 1.5 or whatever, in that range, 1 to 1.5, I think is what he said. So yeah, it was very eye-opening. He broke down all of the things what you should be looking for and stuff like that. So I did post it in on Discord.
Yeah, and I think another example of that would be, let's say, you know how sometimes you see at the street fairs and they have free blood sugar testing, high blood pressure, blood sugar. So they had one around here, and I said, let me just go. Every now and then you want to do a checklist, just to do a check-in to see what they say. And so it's a lot of obesity here, children, a lot of people. So people had enough sense. People were lined up to get their blood sugar and everything tested. And I noticed numerous people, they were saying, this is a little high, but it's nothing to worry about. So people took the time to, and it can be significant, right? Because some people, their blood pressure was off the chain. right? But it was like a young boy and it was like an older woman that's coming to check their numbers. But if it's not given to you in a whole context, then now what do you tell the young person, what are they supposed to do with that information, right? My number is this. Okay, does that mean I come back to the Red Cross and y'all give me medication? Does it make sense what I'm saying? What are you supposed to do with those numbers? What's the lifestyle practice? Let's say, for example, somebody makes a generalization, you need to lose weight. Based on results and what we see, I just don't think that's enough to activate the types of changes people need to see, or to make people like, unless somebody like their blood pressure's like, wow, you need to go to the hospital, because they had all the numbers listed there. I mean, some people's numbers are really, really, really high. But then I heard several people, the recommendation was like, oh, yes, it's high, but that's nothing to worry about. So without making those distinctions, I feel like people are left even more confused. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so they're comprehensive. In that sense, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but in that sense, just the acceptance of you're on your own, the responsibility for finding out what you need to do, for even investing in your health, whether that your exercise, finding what is going to work for you. And you can measure that with accountability tools. With us, we use a heart rate monitor, we use Mind Diary, and we're taking our body composition. But you want to be able to measure this business. How can you tell if what you're doing is having an effect or a positive effect? Once you read that periodically and measure your progress, you can see what you need to tweak, and you can see what you can tweak within your budget and your lifestyle and your job and your sleep patterns, right? So that's the sweet spot, finding what works for you that's going to be effective. We should be able to see some types of changes. And there's some things that you can't see with your eye, but there should be some changes if you are implementing certain things on a regular basis. But that was an excellent question. Stacy, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, any feedback, any thoughts?
Well, I agree about the research and also agree about the whole thing with the doctors and what they tell you. I guess what I'm doing now is different from like what Tracy is doing. I realized for myself that I have to figure out what my therapist is not telling me. Let me slow down. Anyway, because I'm in my mind, I'm like going through so many things. I have to slow down.
Hold on, one second.
Anyway, so
I'm gonna go out and come back in to make sure that this is private. I'm gonna go out and come right back in on Discord. So I'm gonna end this, and I'm coming right back on.